Take a closer look at the brand new Deathworld Forest in all its wacky glory. Wacky bits. Alright, welcome back, Hobby Maniacs. Baer with you again today. Taking a look at the Deathworld Forest. I don't know what this thing is. I look at it and it's painted great. It's just wacky. It's wacky. I mean, if you've obviously ever wanted like some crazy Catachan table or like some Eldar Exodite kind of world, this is amazing for that. And I think it's very, very, very cool looking. It's wacky. It's not your conventional, 40K that you would normally expect. And I guess that's why seems a little wacky to me. But for, the narrative, it's definitely right on point for sure. I mean, these things are just crazy. Like, I don't even know what to say about them right now. But they have rules in game. They are very interesting indeed as to how they work. Now, for the models themselves, what you get in the box is one of the venom growths, grapple weeds ×2, and then three different of the barbs, different configurations, 2 Eldritch Ruins, which help your psychers, and 5 different rando shard rack spines, which kind of lay flat. The rest of them are kind of more 3-dimensional kind of type deal. And then here's all of your different colors to paint these things here, because again, they're very interesting. They're not your standard 40K, and I think that's why initially it's just a little like, what the heck? But then you start looking at it, you're like, man, that would look kind of cool on the tabletop, right? So when you open it up, you're gonna notice something. This is the Chinese crafted, Chinese manufactured plastic. It's not the multi-part plastics that we're used to. It is of a lower quality, a little bit lesser, maybe kind of quality control as well than what we're kind of used to, but we'll show you some of that here in a second. It does come with a manual for the Deathworld Forest itself, which we'll get to here in a minute. But just wanted you to know the majority of these kits or this stuff comes pre-baggied into individual baggies, because if you think about it, the sprues that they come on would probably take up too much space in this box. So that might be why they cut it down and put it in baggies. Now they did leave 2 of the sprues in here, the ones for the top of the spines, shard rack, not the shard racks, the venom growths. The tops of the venom growths is there, and then some other, these basically go onto here, kind of like the old Catachan trees, if you remember those, and then they lock into these particular spots right into there. So that's kind of how it goes, and then they go on top of the kind of tree trunk kind of structure type things. But we're not going to take a look at that quite yet. I do want to talk about the construction and how they go together here on the tabletop, right? So here's your Eldritch Ruin, which we're going to take a closer look at because, we're always worried about the quality of things. When you're paying $130 for a box of terrain, you definitely want to know what you get, right? So here's the Eldritch Ruin. Here's the other Eldritch Ruin, and you can kind of see what I was talking about there, the old Catachan style trees from the early 2000s. They basically assemble the same way. The barbed venom growths, there's a bunch of different ones, but they go together halvesies, and then they put the little jaw kind of things on top. There's the other one with the individual sucker thingies, and then the ones that have flowered right there. And then the grapple weeds are really interesting. They just kind of walk around and like try to eat stuff. But that construction is pretty simple, and we're going to see an example of some of that. The shard racks, a little bit easier. You just sock them in and they lay flat, and there's 2 different styles, 3 of one, 2 of the other. As far as the rules go, there's 3 different sets of rules, and then there's like the Deathworld Forest, which is the combination of all of them put together. It's almost like a mini kind of formation type deal, right? Okay, so first off, the Deathworld Forest contains all 3 of the shard rack, the Eldritch Ruins, and the barbed venom growths. The setup is basically you set everything up within 3 inches of another piece. So it's going to be pretty dense and packed, which is both good and bad because all of them now are going to give you a 3-up cover save if you're obscured. According to these, it's 25%. But subtract an additional 1 from dangerous terrain test taken by a model as a result of a Deathworld Forest piece. Okay, but now you're saying over here, A lot of times your dangerous terrain is inflicted at AP3. Your dangerous terrain is caused on a roll of a 1 or 2 at some spots right here in the venom growths. So it can be kind of dangerous to try to actually run through these and force a difficult ground check. So kind of keep that in mind as well. What is it? The shard racks, which are the ones that run around and try to eat you? That's always interesting. Oh, so the Eldritch Ruins, if you have a Psyker within 3, give you a D3 warp charge when you harness, which is kind of cool. The Barbed Venomgross, is these the ones? Yeah, these are the grapple weeds, which contains 3 Barbed Venomgross and up to 2 grapple weeds. Those are the ones that try to move around and actually attack you. So they move 2d6 towards the nearest visible non-enemy unit and stop 1 inch away. Anything then suffers that's 3 inches away, then suffers 2d6 strength 4 hits, a poison 4 special rule. So that's kind of interesting. They like try to literally eat you, right? And then the Shardrak Spines, they're not super crazy. They just inflict AP3 wounds for failed difficult terrain tests or dangerous terrain tests right there. So that is pretty much the gist of the rules. Now let's take a look at some of these models. So here is one of the Eldritch Ruins. Let's get in here a little close because I want y'all to see the quality of what we're talking about here. Okay. So again, this is the Chinese plastic. It's not quite as detailed. It's a little bit more rugged. That's probably why we can price point it, you know, out at $130. I don't know. I'm not GW, but I would assume that the cheaper you get, the lower you can sell the stuff for. So if they didn't and they used the normal plastics, of course, that might be pretty expensive. Here you can see where they cut the stuff off the sprue for you. It's okay. You're going to have to you're going to have to use all of your hobby tricks and trades for this particular kit here because the flash lines are pretty substantial. I mean, they're very chunky, they're very beefy. You've got these sections here where they clipped away. But now let's take a look how they assemble together. If there's any ridiculous gaps, which we have seen in the past with some of this terrain. Now there's a nub and a recess, and a nub and a recess. So these should theoretically lock together pretty well. So they do appear to be locked together. This does not look like it is wobbly. It looks like it lines up and it's all flush with the ground. But again, you can see some pretty big chunks right here that you're gonna have to clean up. And there's pretty wicked mold line all the way across there. Now, you also notice right here, I am pushing flush all the way against here, and there is quite a bit of a gap. I would say that's what, a 32nd of a gap. So you're gonna wanna invest in some of that Vallejo plastic putty. That stuff is great. I think it will really help out here for sure on this particular model kit, right? So there's that, and now you assemble this by putting, I guess, this in here like this, right? Isn't that what we saw? Or is it the other way? Something like this. There you go. So that locks in there pretty snugly, it looks like. I'm happy with that. It's pretty good quality there. And then I think this little thing goes on top somehow, and it's supposed to like hook in. Oh, there it is. That's how it does it. So it hooks in kind of like that. So maybe you don't have to super worry about the gap filler because this thing locks up on top of it. But maybe, yeah, you're still gonna want to gap fill that. There's still a pretty big crack down in there, I feel like. So that just kind of gives you an idea there. Now let's see. Let's take a look at maybe one of the other kits just to see if it's quite as gappy and flashliney, I guess. These are all technical terms, of course. I don't know what these are. This here is the bottom of the shard weed thing, so they lay pretty flat, it looks like. I'm okay with that. Can't really complain much. They look like they bow up on the ends, but then when you put that weight, I think it'll be okay. And lots of little skulls in here. It looks like they've enveloped a bunch of skulls into their that's a lot of skulls. G-Dub loves their skulls. There's skulls for days on this thing. So maybe when you push the pieces into here, they'll be a little bit more secure and flat on the ground. Or then again, maybe laying in these little baggies has messed them up a bit. These bags, looks like some of this has kind of bent. And lots of gaps here, lots of chunks. You're gonna have to use all your hobby tools on this one. Lots and lots of chunks, lots of mold lines here. Not exactly super happy with that. If I was buying this kit to put on my tabletop, it seems like it would be definitely a lot of work. Here's another one of the Venom Gross. Let's check this guy out. So, got two of these. How does this line up? This looks like this lines up like this. Give or take. Lines up pretty good. This goes to another thing. So probably something like this where put one of these on top. Yeah, I feel like you're still gonna need some gap filler. Definitely, for sure, on this one. And you're gonna need this, maybe even some light grit sandpaper, just because of the texturing here. Is there anything else we can look at? Oh, here's that other piece. The other Eldritch Ruin. See how detailed that one is. Comes with... Okay. So here's that. And that looks like it sets at kind of an angle, right? Check these pieces. Yeah, huge chunks right there. And you can see, oh my gosh, you can see those mold lines from space almost. That's what it feels like looking through the camera, the viewfinder, down onto here. They are very large and noticeable for sure. And then this piece here, I assume goes right there. Yep, looks like it holds pretty well. It looks pretty flush. This is a big beefy piece, so I'm not exactly sure if you need a bunch of gap filler on this. Nah, it don't look like it. I don't know. I'm kind of torn because I feel like for the money you're spending, you should get the multi-part plastics and it should be higher quality, but the business person in me definitely knows that that probably is not an option just because the price points of a lot of things. But the fact that it does come pre-baggied and pre-cut off is kind of a concession, I suppose. Remember, you are going to have to hobby hard on this one because you saw all those crazy chunks of material that were all over it. But at the end of the day, this table looks pretty awesome, pretty dope, pretty colorful. I'm really digging what they did there. I mean, you could crank this terrain out in no time flat. Like just a little bit of airbrushing and some light overbrushing, maybe some hyper highlighting on like the edges and such. But I mean, it's pretty dope, and these colors would be pretty rad to work with too. Like, I mean, some of these you don't really get to work with very often, so that's kind of cool. Like some dries, some shades, and some base. It looks very easy to get ready. I almost feel like you would spend more time trimming them up and getting them ready in that regard than actually painting them with an airbrush, or perhaps just base coating them and then dry brushing them. Obviously, hobby smart. Make sure you use your sprays and your airbrush and save time where you can, so you can spend more time on the tabletop actually playing these games, right? So I guess that's about it for this one. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Overall, I think it's a decent product, but definitely a few caveats there with the Chinese kind of thing and the extra work that you might have to do to get it on the tabletop there. So errors, omissions, clarifications, please leave your notes in the comments below and we'll try to get to them all.
Deleted scenes, bonus content, and all the interviews and post-game wrap-up videos can be located in the Hall of Veterans on thelongwar.net. Visit thelongwar.net today and try a week completely free with no strings attached. That's not all. Thelongwar.net is also your hobby resource for exclusive early access with an ad-free experience to all your favorite videos. Members of the Hall of Veterans gain early exclusive access to multiple hobby videos.